The Water Wars, Chapter 6. The laser torches lit the hallway in streaks of purple and red. Will saw them first while I rummaged through a stack of paper and notebooks on a desk made of real wood. RGs, he hissed. RGs were the members of the Republic Guard who were armed with high-tech gear. Feared and loathed in equal measure, they protected the Republic's border and what was left of its infrastructure. But there wasn't enough time to wonder why the RGs were here. Their arrival was never a good thing. There was a dead body and spent ammunition and 2 kids old enough to be saboteurs. We had to flee before we were trapped. The lights danced across the open doorway. Will and I huddled in the back of the small room that served as Kai's father's office. There was a second door that led into a bath, and from there into Kai's bedroom. We tiptoed to the bathroom. Outside we could hear the guards' electronic communications. They spoke in clipped military language, most of which I couldn't understand, but I clearly heard them say we were cornered in the building. The only thing that saved us was Kai's medicine kit on the side of the sink. As I stopped to examine it, the RGs entered the bedroom. They would surely have seen us if we had continued into the room. Instead, Will bumped into me and we both froze behind the door. Then we quickly retraced our steps to the office, back through the living room to the front hallway, and out the open door. 2 men stood just inside the perimeter of the fence by the front gate. They were dressed in the same blue shirts as the men I had seen at the gaming center, and each carried an automatic weapon. Will raised a finger to his lips. He signaled toward the hole in the fence. We scurried quickly into the twilight and slipped through the opening before anyone noticed. Then we leaped onto our petacycles and rode silently like madmen until we were within sight of our building. "We can't stay here," gasped Will as we stopped to catch our breath about 50 meters from our front door. "What do you mean? Where else can we go?" He nodded at the security cameras mounted on nearly every building corner. Of course, the cameras at the Wellington Pavilion had filmed our arrival. It wouldn't take long for the RGs to review the logs and identify us in the database. "But we didn't do anything," I protested. "It won't look that way." I was still gripping Kai's medicine kit. Now I looked inside. 4 neat, contoured insulin reservoirs were secured in an insulated pouch next to 2 boxes of blood testing strips and a spare adapter for the injector pencil. "He left without his insulin," I said. "Why would he do that?" "He didn't do it," I said. "They took him." "We don't know that. He could have been running." "You saw the bodyguard. Do you think he shot himself?" "Maybe he got shot protecting Kai and his father and they got away." "Then where's the blood and the other bodies?" "Could be no one else was wounded." But Will knew I was right. No matter how desperate Kai's situation, he wouldn't have left voluntarily without his insulin. It was a death sentence. "We have to help him, Will." "We can't go to the Guard or the Army. They'll be looking for us." "Then we have to go ourselves." "Don't be crazy. They'll have guns and we don't even know who they are." "If we stay here, the Guard will arrest us. You said so yourself." My voice cracked. My throat was bone dry. "And what do we do if we find him? Shoot our way inside?" "If we have proof, the Guard will come, especially if there's money in it." Will frowned. But he knew the Republic Guard would help a wealthy driller if we had a holo or even an audiogram, anything that could link us to bank records. "We should tell Dad," said Will, "just in case." I couldn't believe Will was suggesting this. Our father would never let us leave. I told Will he was scared and making excuses. He said he was being rational and weighing the risks. The more we argued, the more forceful I became. For once, I was the leader and Will the reluctant follower. He may have had logic, but I had passion and desire. "If we lose Kai, we lose the river," I said. "We lose everything." The lights had come on outside our building, and soon the grid would shut down. Will's face was smeared with dust and grime from the ride, and I assumed I looked the same. My lips stung, and my hair felt matted with sweat and sand, but I felt exhilarated and prepared for anything. Will's uneven grin told me he felt the same way. "We don't know where to start," he said. "Yes, we do." I retrieved Kai's father's notebooks from my side basket. In them he had detailed the site of an old well that was about 40 kilometers from Arch. I couldn't understand all his notations, but it looked like he had found water there. If so, there was plenty of suspects who would kidnap him for the information. We cleaned up as best as we could outside. Luckily, our father was making dinner for our mother. He didn't notice as we tiptoed past him for the bath. By the time he returned from the bedroom, I had set the table, and we were sitting in front of our plates looking as innocent as we could. I have no idea what we talked about. Every bump and sound made me jerk with worry that the RGs had arrived. We could only pray that it would take them some time to review the tapes and run a data scan, because it was too dark now to cycle on the roads. I don't think I slept a wink, and I know Will didn't, because I could hear him thrashing and pacing in his room. We left before dawn. We wrote a note explaining that we had gone to school early with a friend's parent for water team. It was something our father could have checked, but he had plenty of other things to worry about. It was not the first time we had gone to school early, nor the first time someone had given us a ride. Our plan was to return before dark. We had goggles, masks, and sun shields. The wind could be fierce on the open road, and the shields could also protect against flying sand. Will brought some food, 2 liters of water in a saddlebag, and his old instant holo camera. I brought my credit chip. I had saved my weekly allowance for most of the year, and though it was only 50 credits, that was enough to buy 4 meals and another liter of water and still leave something for an emergency. I also had Kai's medicine kit with his insulin and injector. As Will calculated it, we could ride north on our petacycles at about 15 kilometers an hour. It should be no more than 3 hours to reach the well. If we were wrong and Kai wasn't there, we could return before our father knew we had gone. If there were any trouble, we had the camera and could send the hollows by wireless. The RGs could come within an hour. At least that was the plan. But we made 2 mistakes. The first was that we assumed our petacycles could withstand the grueling ride over 42 kilometers of broken road. The cycles were meant for short trips, the market, school, a friend's apartment complex. They were not meant for dirt and gravel roads that had not been repaired in years and were littered with old car parts, scrap metal, rubber, and glass. We made it about 14 kilometers before I got my first flat. Will fixed the tire with a repair kit and some compressed air, but the second flat could not be repaired. The metal rim had separated from the tire, and no amount of pounding and banging would straighten it out. We had to abandon the cycle on the side of the road, and I climbed behind Will on his cycle. The extra weight, however, soon exhausted Will. He couldn't pedal for both of us, and we stopped frequently so he could catch his breath. Then he got a flat too and ran out of compressed air while fixing it. Now his front tire was half inflated, and that made pedaling even more difficult. I offered to trade places, but I didn't have the strength to cycle more than a kilometer. It took us 6 hours instead of 3 to reach the site of the old well. Neither of us said anything about how long it would take to get back. Our second mistake was to think that there might be water at a place so desiccated and lost. The well had been drained years ago, and the coating of dust everywhere quickly told us there had been few visitors. Cracked and parched earth was all that remained where there once been soft, loamy soil. No water had flowed since at least the Great Panic, if not before. Kai was not here, and probably never had been. Whatever the notations meant in his father's notebook, the well wasn't related to the kidnapping. Our lengthy trip had been foolish and needlessly risky. As it was, darkness was coming, and we had no way to reach our father without a wireless signal. It was all my fault for suggesting we come here in the first place. "They must have taken him further north," said Will. His voice was barely a whisper. "Maybe, wherever they went. They've got a 20-hour head start." "Don't even think about it. We'll never catch them, not with the petacycle." "But Will," he shook his head, "the only way to help them is to turn ourselves into the guard. They'll lock us up. It's our only chance." Then my eye caught it, the faintest glimmer, a slight twinkle in the sun that I might not have seen if the light hadn't caught it in just the right way. I picked up the syringe and showed it to Will. "He was here," I said. "It's just an old needle." "No, it's a backup from his injector. He told me, if this pencil runs out, he can always use the syringe in a bottle. He was here." Will rolled the needle between thumb and forefinger like a valuable piece of silver. "There must be tracks," he said. "Yes," I said, encouraging him. "But which way?" He walked backwards slowly, his eyes fixed on the ground, scanning every inch of surface. I followed, trying to force my vision to see through the sand and dirt. If someone had been here, the wind would have covered the tracks quickly, and although the well looked untouched, half a day's sandstorm could make anything look ancient. At first the growl in the distance sounded like a storm. It came with very little warning, but as it got closer, the growl grew deeper, like a wild animal. Will straightened and tensed beside me. "What is it?" I asked. "Trucks," he said. "Lots of them." "Could it be Kai?" Our view of the horizon was restricted because the ground sloped away from where we stood. Several low-slung buildings also blocked our sight line. We could hear the trucks roaring, but we were otherwise blind. The sound morphed into different pitches, some high and whining, some others low and rumbling. A convoy of vehicles heading for the front line, or escaping with kidnapped victims, or maybe both. Then the roar ceased. This was unusual because the vehicles in a convoy would never shut off their engines. Even I knew that. In an ambush, they would not have been able to flee immediately. This was someone who was not afraid of an ambush, for whom fuel mattered more than fleeing. Neither the army nor the guard would ever take such a risk. Then Will spotted them. "Run, Vera, run!" A dozen or so men dressed in tattered black clothing, bearded and large, appeared over the horizon. They walked with guns extended, poised, ready to shoot. If these were the men who had kidnapped Kai, we didn't stand a chance. My legs fell bolted to the earth. I couldn't move. Will grabbed my hand and pulled me away from the road. Behind us, I could hear the men yelling and machines restarting their engines. "Who are they?" I shouted as I stumbled to keep up with Will. "Water pirates!" His voice quavered. I nearly fell down. Water pirates were the worst kinds of vigilantes. They traveled like nomads, stealing water wherever they could find it and selling it to the highest bidder. They owed allegiance to no government and killed all who crossed them. Will veered off the flattened sands onto rocky terrain, and I followed as fast as I could. We could hear the trucks roaring down upon us and something else in the sky. I looked up and saw a sight I'd seen only once before in my life. A helicopter. 2 men with guns squatted in an open hatchway. "Stop running!" an amplified voice commanded. Will zigzagged, trying to scamper by the biggest rocks to slow the trucks. He kept one arm out for me, and I grabbed it, feeling the muscle of his forearm throbbing with the effort of the chase. We ran clumsily. I feared each step would be my last. I waited for the bullets to rip the air and wondered what it would feel like to be shot. Painful, like a vaccination, or quick and peaceful. Dust and dirt filled my vision, and it was hard to breathe. My lungs burned, and my feet ached from the rocks. But soon the road was a good half-kilometer behind us, and the sound of the trucks had faded. The helicopter, however, kept pace overhead. "Why are they chasing us?" "They don't want anyone to know they were here," said Will. Stealing water was a crime punishable by death. Even wildcatters like Kai's father did their drilling with government licenses. Although the army rarely caught them, pirates were executed or sent to camps from which they never returned. Like other undesirables, they threatened the stability of the fragile republic. But this only made pirates more ruthless and determined never to be captured. They trusted no one and killed those who betrayed them. I ran harder. Then we heard the dogs. It was a sound I knew only from the wireless. Dogs were too expensive for most people to own. Unlike cats, they drank plenty of water and could not hunt their own food. Left alone, they were quickly killed by coyotes, one of the few other animals that survived in the wild. But they were still bred for certain purposes, including hunting runaways. "Will!" "I know I heard them," he said. "Hurry!" But the 2 of us were no match for men with dogs, to say nothing of helicopter that kept a close watch from the sky. The barking got louder, the blades of the copter beat the air around us. We ran, but the pirates ran faster. I stumbled, and an arm reached out to grab me. But it wasn't Will's arm. It was tattooed and covered with scars, twisted and gnarled, a pirate's arm.